Hey there, and welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Levitation Supported Method, Section 2. This is going to be a really exciting section. We're going to be bringing together multiple images of our subject to create our final pose. We're going to show you how to use the pen tool to create accurate selections in your photos. Now, with these accurate selections, you're going to be able to completely remove areas like the jug and the stool that our subject is sitting on. This is going to make it look as though they really are levitating. We're also going to show you how to combine different photos of your subject. In this example, we have an area of basically from our waist down, where we like that from one photograph, and we have an area from the waist up that we like from a different photograph. So we're going to show you how to combine those together so your final photo can be one that you really like every single part of. We got a ton to do in this section. Always keep in mind that you can rewind, pause, and well, you can fast forward if you wanted to, but that would be very impressive. I don't think I've ever heard anyone to fast forward through a Phlearn Pro tutorial. Anyway, have a great time watching this. We'll see you in the tutorial. Hey there, and welcome to section 2. In this section, we're going to be combining different images of our subject, as well as doing a little bit of cutting out. We're going to get rid of that the jug under her foot. Let's go ahead and get into it. We got a ton to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do basically is start off by looking at what images are going to be making up my subject. So this is totally just a decision that you can make for every different photo. In fact, if I wanted the end photo to just be this one image, that's totally acceptable. You can do that too. I'm just kind of being a little bit I'm making my job harder. I'm going to make it a combination of a few different photos, but I kind of like the different photos. Like I like her hand in this one, and I like her hair and her face in this one as well. So that's what we're going to do. So this image is going to wind up making up her body, so our subject's body. So the first thing I want to do is I'd like to put a layer mask on there. So we're going to put a layer mask. I'm going to hit Control or Command I to invert that layer mask, and then I'm going to paint white on the layer mask with a regular soft edge brush. There we go. Just where my subject appears. Now in this step, I'm not too concerned about that jug. I'll be removing that shortly. But for now, I just want to make sure that I'm taking care of this area, as well as like the shadow or any reflections that are going to be right under my subject. All right. And if you need to, you can soften out those areas around the edges by using a large soft edge brush. All right, there we are. And I am going to just fade a little bit so you can see the, there we go. So it'll go a little bit into the torso area there. Now, if you ever need to check on any of your layer masks, just click on your layer mask. You can hold the Alt or the Option key and click there so you can see, did I miss anything? Did I get everything that I need to? You can also hit the slash key that's above the return key on your keyboard. It's right next to the delete key. It looks like this. Pow. Well, there's no curve in it. It's a slash. Okay. Hitting the slash key will make your image look like this. There we go. This is another way of displaying layer masks. So anything that is this kind of red color is going to be black on your layer mask. Anything that is white will be visible. Okay, looking good. Now, we've got our legs. The next thing I'd like to do is refine our mask a little bit, because we need to get rid of this jug, because as long as it's there, it's not going to look as though our subject is levitating. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a selection around that jug that's going to help us cut this out. So not difficult at all. We're going to be using the pen tool, and we've included a special tutorial just on using the pen tool. So I'm going to go ahead and get started in here. But if you need a refresher of the pen tool, you can pause this video, check out our pen tool video, and then come back. Okay. To start with our pen tool, we're going to go over to our path. So we've got layers, channels, and paths here. We're going to create a new path by clicking on the new path icon. Looks like a square with a little page flip. And we're just going to double click and call this feet. Now, we don't have to use the pen tool a ton in this tutorial, but when it comes to making selections like this, there really is nothing better than the pen tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of just click and drag a few times, and this is how we define curves. So if I want to define this curve that kind of goes up and down again, I'm going to click and then drag out in that direction. All right, and now we're going to click here, and we're going to drag down in that direction. and you can see how this curve just kind of follows that area. The thing I love about the pen tool is you can change these paths at any time. Just hold the Control or Command key on any of these points and you can change this path. There we go. So it becomes very easy to make the perfect selection. If you need to create a sharp angle, like in this case we need to angle it up for the dress, hold the Alt or the Option key and you can grab just one of the corners. There we go. And here we are. Alright. We'll drag that up. We're going to create all these little curves in here that is just going to make it really easy to, there we go, select out the dress area and onto the foot. Notice how I'm not just selecting out the bottle. Instead of selecting just the bottle out, I'm going to select this whole area out, and it's going to make my layer mask look a lot more natural, and I can do a lot better job blending if I have a larger area selected. So I'm choosing an area that, you know, kind of encompasses the whole foot there. All right. Now in this case, we are going to actually wind up including a little bit of the bottle because it's pressing into her foot. So if you do come to a situation where you find yourself needing to include a little bit of an object like this, we're just going to use the clone stamp tool to wind up recreating part of her foot. But not a problem at all because this pen path is going to very accurately define the edge of her foot. So we won't have to worry about making the actual border of her foot look like a foot because our pen path is going to do that for us. Alright, there we go. Let's go all the way up here. Cool. And then we're just going to kind of come around here and rejoin our original point. Alright, so that's our first pen path there. Now we're just going to do the same thing on the bottom here. We're going to start right over here. So if you've never used the pen tool before, it can take a little bit of getting used to. It's an incredibly useful tool. It's by far the most don't pen tool and talk, by the way. It's not going to work. It's by far the most accurate tool when you're going to be making selections like this, because you can define exactly where these pen paths go, and after you're done making the paths, you can turn those paths into selections, and then you can use those selections on a variety of applications. Most of the time, you're going to be using them on layer masks to define the visibility of an object. In this case, we're going to be defining the visibility of a jug, and we are in fact going to be making it invisible. All right, let's come around here. So I'm kind of using the foot as a little bit of a guide there. You know, so we're gonna make this selection around this area and around this area. So I need, you know, I don't need this to be that accurate because it's just gonna blend from one Phlearn to the other. But for the foot area and the other foot area, that's where we really need solid lines. Okay, so that's all we have to do to make those selections. Now we're going to go ahead and turn these paths into a selection. So we have our paths here. All you have to do is right click on your path and go down to Make Selection. Now it's a good idea to feather this selection a little bit. It's going to help the edge look a little more natural. So we have it feathering the radius of 1 pixel. That's okay. If we need to change that later, we can totally do that. So we're going to hit OK. Okay, and you know what? It's kind of, it just selected that one thing. So let's deselect. Let's make sure it's going to select both. All right, it selected both. The reason it only selected the lower one is because the lower pen path was active at that time. So by deselecting and then doing it again, it's now selected both. Okay, so back to our layers. Remember, I have information right below that, right? So I don't have to clone stamp. I don't have to, you know, try to get information back. I have information that is already below there. All I have to do is paint black on my layer mask over here, and my jug will completely disappear, which is very nice, very easy. Okay, there we go. Let's do the same thing for here. And it's all, you know, it's not going to let me paint over the feet because I have a selection. You can only, you know, you can only layer mask wherever your selection's active. There we go. Let's get rid of the little shadow from the jug. All right. Now, if you need to see what's going on and your little marching ants, these little guys are getting in the way, just hit Controller Command H. That's going to hide your active selection, and it will allow you to actually see what you're doing. Okay, that looks great. There we go. We just removed our jug. Now, there are two things that I'd like to do. Let's deselect. There are two more things that I'd like to do. Number one is, you see how there's a little bit of fog under the couch there? There's actually no fog in this image, so I need to paint back a little bit of fog right under the foot. Not hard to do. The second thing I need to do is I need to make this look like it's a foot and not a pen cap or a bottle cap. Also, not hard to do. Okay, let's start with the fog. The fog we're going to be doing right in our background group. So new layer, B for the brush tool. We're just going to sample this color right here. Choose a very large soft edge brush and just paint it in right there. We just painted in fog. Let's make sure to change our layer blend mode from normal to lighten. There we go, because fog will lighten things, doesn't darken things. Okay, so we just painted in fog. And you're like, that was easy. Yes, it was. Okay, now we're going to be taking care of some clone stamping. And to do that, we're going to be using what's called a clipping mask. Now, if you've never used a clipping mask before, here's how they work. You can paint anything you want on a layer. Okay, in this case, let's just do like that. Okay, now if I want this layer to only show up where the underlying layer is visible, all I have to do is clip it to the underlying layer. In this case, I'm going to right click on this layer and go to Create Clipping Mask. And you can see now this is only visible where the underlying layer is visible. In this case, it's my subject, or where I defined in the layer mask anyway. You can see, since I so clearly defined this area of the layer mask as well as this area of the layer mask, remember, this is what my layer mask looks like right now. Okay? Since I so clearly defined those areas, then this orange, or whatever you want to painting, is only going to be visible there. Okay, well, let's go ahead and clear everything that's on this layer by hitting Command or Control A, which selects everything, and then you hit Delete. That'll just delete everything. So we're on the same layer. Oops, I just filled with black on accident. I meant to zoom in. We're on the same layer. It's clipped to my layer with my subject. So again, same thing, right? So instead of painting orange, because I don't need any orange on there, that's not too helpful, I'm just going to use my clone stamp tool. So we're going to hit S for the clone stamp tool. I'm going to hit Sample Current and Below. Okay, and now we're just going to sample that point there, and we're just going to paint it right in. Alrighty, here, I painted a little bit too much, so we're just going to erase. Alright, there we go. Just clone stamping a little bit more foot in there. Alright, there we go. Let's just zoom out and make sure it continues to look like a foot, which it does. Thankfully, it's not a face. Feet are a lot easier to clone stamp than faces are. And there we go. So we have our subject now successfully cut out. No bottle going on. We're good to go there. And I'm just going to refine this layer mask just a little bit to bring back a little bit more shadow there. There we go. All right, and that looks pretty good. Okay, now let's just do one. I'm going to just retouch really quick just this little thing right there because it's kind of bugging me. There we go. We would have done that later if we didn't do it now. So, looking good. All right, the next thing we're going to do is take care of our subject's body. So for this, what we need to do is, just like we did before, I'm going to put a black layer mask on this. Alt or Option and click on your layer mask. And then we're going to paint white on the layer mask, right where my subject's body is. Bunk, down to her arm, basically. All right. Now, you're going to have a little bit of area that's like kind of overlap in there, and that's going to be a big question mark. So we'll deal with that in a second. The other thing is we've got some fog here, and I want to expand this out in this direction. So this layer mask for this part of my subject. Doesn't need to stop at my subject because I actually want to include that fog. Okay, let's hit delete there. I'm going to click on my layer mask now, and we're going to use our brush tool to just paint that visible. There we go. You know what? And we're just going to go all the way up here because that makes our job a lot easier when it comes to blending. All right. There we are. We got some hair in there. Now, I am unsure of how far I'm going to be taking this because I've got another layer here that I want to use for her arm. So we're just going to take it to there. For now, I'm not going to continue to refine the layer mask. Again, for now. There we go. That looks good. Let's get a little bit of glow here. I'm not going to continue to refine this layer mask for now. I'm going to place this arm first. Okay. So this arm, we're going to hold Alt or Option, click on the layer mask for that as well, making a black layer mask. And now we're going to paint this back. Again, this is all up to you. Don't feel like you have to do any of these steps. These are creative decisions that we're making. I thought it would look really great. Oh, that long hair is nice. I like that long hair too. Okay, so that's why I didn't bother layer masking that hair perfectly, because I like it better there. It's a little bit longer. All right, and I'm going to see if I can blend that together, which, yeah, I can. All right, so this layer underneath there, we want to see, you know, how far we're going to take the fog, and if that's going to interrupt with the arm. It looks like we can take the fog down a little bit more, so let's just click on there. We're going to bring the fog down a little bit more so it's got a nice natural edge on it. You know, it doesn't look like it was just done in Photoshop. Okay, that's looking pretty good so far. Up at the top. All right, let's get her arm and her lower back situated a little bit better. So basically all I'm doing here is painting white and black on my layer masks to get areas where these two are going to merge together. You know, and got pretty lucky on this in that her arm pretty much matches with the other photo. If it didn't, we could just move it around and do a better job layer masking. But in this case, pretty lucky actually. It's pretty good. All right, now let's zoom out. We've got this photo for the bottom of her. Okay, we've got this photo for her torso, and then we've got that photo for her arm. Looking great. Now, what's left to do as far as our subject goes? We have a couple of things. First, you can see our subject here, her arm is not very well defined. It needs to have a nice clear edge on it. And you guessed it, we're going to use the same. I'm being so corny right now. Jeez. You guessed it. Were you? I never talk like that. Okay. You can see her arm is, we have a little bit of an edge problem there where the fog we want going right to her arm. Okay, so we're going to use the same technique we used right there. And we'll use the pen tool. It's so funny. Whenever you're making recordings or you're on video and stuff like that, you find yourself using like voices and personalities that you don't actually talk in, which is, I don't know if you guys ever had experience with it, but I catch myself doing it sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing? That's like, I don't talk like that at all. Anyway, use it as a comedic interlude. You got to be there for both sides of it. Okay, so we need to take care of that. We're also going to be taking care of this area too, because this doesn't really look that good. Okay, we need to take care of some hair as well, and for that we have this other photo, thankfully, and then we need to get rid of this stool in the background. All right, so that's gonna be really nice. So let's go ahead and take care of this area first, because we know how we're going to be doing that. So what we're going to do is go to my paths. Okay, I'd like to create a new path there, and we're just going to call this arm. Okay, and hit P for the pen tool, and then we're going to do the same type of thing here. Click and drag it in here, and if you need to move these points again, hold down the Control or the Command key, and that's going to allow you to move these points even after you create them. I could come back in a year from now and move these points if I need to. So at any point in time, if I decide, you know, I make my selection, you know what, I'm just going to do it like a little bit wrong, and then we'll show you guys how easy it is to fix. All right, there we go. Let's come on up there. All right, so let's pretend that's our selection, and we right click here and say make selection and feather by 1 pixel again, and we go back onto our, you know, path onto our layer here. And now what I want to do is I want to paint black on my layer mask. So I'm going to hit Control Command H to hide that selection, and I'm going to paint black. So everything looks good and we're all good to go, except for, did you see earlier I had my pen path, see it missed her arm right there? So I'm like, oh dang, I didn't want to do that. So not that difficult to change, actually. All we have to do is just click here again, go back to your pen tool, so P for the pen tool, you can click there. Now we want to reactivate this pen path, so I'm going to hold the Controller Command key and click on there again. And then I can just hit Controller Command and click on there too. So I'm going to just change this just a little bit. Okay, so I had that path was set, I just changed a little bit, holding Controller Command. Very easy, and now we're just going to do the same thing. Make that a selection, hit OK, and then on the layer mask, just paint a little bit more black there. Okay, and there we go. That's really it. So if you do need to go back and make a change, if you made an adjustment, you can do that. I could have even gone back and undid, you know, painting black on the layer mask and just redid it again. So very easy to do. Which is why I love the pen tool so much, because, you know, it allows you to be a little bit messy. Okay, let's clean this area up. This is looking a little bit weird here. So thankfully, she has this black waistband, which makes things a lot easier for compositing, because, you know, black is pretty easy to composite with other black things. So I'm painting white on this layer mask or black on this layer mask, depending on where we want things to be visible. And you know, generally we want, remember, this is the layer for her torso there, right? So we generally only want this to be visible for her torso, because this layer is our dress layer. Okay. And if you've never done Photoshop work like this, you may be amazed to see how well these things actually do blend together. And I'll tell you, sometimes things blend together much better than others. If, for instance, I had something like that, and it was like they just didn't line up, a lot of the time you can just take a clone stamp tool and fix that. Like if I clone stamped, I would just, you know, do something like this and just kind of fix it. Yeah, something like that. So even if things don't line up perfectly, which happens all the time, you can usually use a quick tool like the clone stamp tool and still make it work. All right. You'll get lucky sometimes. Things will just line up perfectly and you're like, I meant to do that. Yes, I'm really that good. When everyone knows that, you know, can't plan that stuff. All right, there we are. Okay. Cool. So there we are, this area now, and it's a good practice to turn these layers off and on, because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about, okay, when I turn this off and on, I'm not looking over here. That, you know, that has nothing to do. I'm not looking up here. I'm not looking down here. Where I'm looking is where this layer blends in to the other layers. So really, I just need to be concerned with this, how it's like joining in with the arm here, and that. So it's a good idea to just turn your layer off and on, because it gives you, it'll just like give you a quick idea. It'll allow you to see if you missed anything. Okay, there's a little bit of an overlap here. Can you see that right there? Okay, so we're going to take care of that on the layer mask. I might not have seen that had I not turned the layer off and on. There we are. That looks pretty good. Okay, do the same thing with this layer. Want to see how it's blending into the rest of my image. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. All right. Cool. I hope these little doodles and things like that are helping. You know, I'm doing it to try to illustrate points and stuff like that. So, yeah, if you know, if they help, good. I wish you could tell me. I really love teaching live classes because of, you know, real feedback. But yeah, if you do have any suggestions with our pro tutorials, by the way, feel free to send us an email at info@phlearn.com. I'd love to know what I could do better and what I'm doing that's working very well. So always open to feedback here. All right, let's get her hair taken care of. Thankfully, we have one layer with her hair. Now, the reason why we need to use this other layer for her hair is because the stool is covering her hair up. And if it were like an arm, you can pretty much paint an arm if you needed to. Like, this wouldn't be that hard to paint. It's basically just white, right? It wouldn't be that hard to just grab a brush tool and paint a little bit of an arm. Hair is a little bit harder. We're going to paint a little bit of hair in just a minute, but in general, hair can be a little bit harder. So if we can find a photo that has hair like this, I always prefer to just use that. Okay, so here is our hair, and we're going to go ahead and click on black layer mask on that. I'm going to hit my layer mask, and I'm going to start painting white on the layer mask. Now, it's not perfect. Few things ever are, especially when you're working in Photoshop. You know, I don't have, you know, it doesn't perfectly connect to the rest of the photo. I've still got a few areas that don't quite line up. You know, if I continue to paint white on this layer mask, that's obviously not what I need. I don't need that arm there, and I don't need this. So I'm going to continue painting black, you know, for a minute there. There we go. And I don't need her hand there. So this, it got me somewhere. It got me one step further, which I'm super thankful for. But it's not perfect just yet, which is no big deal at all. All we have to do is we need to take care of this area, okay? And this area just needs to look like that area, pretty much, right? It's just dark hair. We need to take care of this hair, and that hair pretty much just needs to look like this hair over here. So also not very hard to do. We need to take care of this area, which pretty much just needs to look like this area. Okay, so I'm thinking clone stamping, things like that. And then we need a little bit of hair separation, which can pretty much just look like this area right over here. Okay, and then we'll have some of these little things which we'll be able to clone stamp out as well. Or sometimes you can get lucky and like one of your photos, oh, yep, see, look at that. See this photo? I'm making it invisible and then visible again. That photo is the one with the original stool. I can just take that out. So check this out. I'm going to go back to this photo and just use my layer mask and just paint black. See? Saved a lot of work just now. Just by going back a couple of layers and seeing what I got. And it really helps out that I had the camera on a tripod, and I was able to photograph the background by itself without my subject in it. Otherwise, I would have had to clone stamp all this detail in, and it would not have been as good. So now, instead of that stuff, that really did save a decent bit of work, so I'm really glad there. You know, I love Photoshop, and I don't mind doing it, but if I can avoid doing a little bit of Photoshop, I don't mind that either. So now we need to take care of that area, that little bit of stool, and then that bit of stool. Okay? Slightly different. Let's get into it. Before we do, it may look like we're getting a little bit complex here, so I'm just going to start grouping things together so everyone can kind of, we'll stay organized together. Okay? Let's shift click the two of those, hit Command G, call that one legs. Okay? Command G on this one, we'll call this torso. Command G is the keyboard shortcut for group, by the way. Arm, we'll group this with itself and call this hair. Now the reason I'm not just renaming the layers themselves is that I'll probably wind up, like the hair group will probably have a few different layers in it and things like that. So I don't want to rename the layers for that reason, and also because I actually really like to know the original file names. So if I ever need to come back and re-engineer these photos, I'd like to know that that's, you know, 9529. It helps me to find that image very quickly again. So I generally try to stay away from renaming layers, especially when they have file names on them, but you know, every person has their own method, so do whatever works for you. All right, well, let's take care of some clone stamping. We're going to start off here with the pen tool. Okay, so pen tool, P for the pen tool. We're going to create a new selection, and we're just going to double click, and we're going to call this hair 1. I'm creating a pen selection because what I really need is hair that, you know, goes up like this and then over like that and then covers that. And I need this line here to be perfect. Okay, this one not so much because it's just hair, but this line here needs to be perfect. So whenever you need a perfect line, really good idea to create a pen path. P for the pen tool. Okay, we'll start right over here. This is the stool, right? So I'm gonna make sure that I'm, you know, not covering the stool up. Okay, there we go. We can just kind of come on right down there. The top line is the most important line there. Okay, let's right click here and go to make a selection. 1 pixel is fine. Back on my layer mask, I'm going to hit S for the clone stamp tool, and then check this out. Just clone stamp all the way up to the top. Command or Control H will help you hide your selection there. See? Hair just goes up there. Alright, you can clone stamp some stuff to look like, you know, more like hair. It's dark, which is nice. Light hair is a little bit harder. Dark hair is pretty easy. Okay, let's click on our layer mask here to paint that away. Okay, and then here we're going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to hit S for the clone stamp tool, and then I'm just going to start like doing stuff like this. So we're painting from left to right here, clone stamping. But I'm just doing like brush stroke type of things that, you know, make it look like hair. All right. That last one didn't look so good. Some swirlies in there. All right, there we go. So see, that was pretty easy. You know, it's hair. Looks like that. You can have fun with it. I'm just using my brush tool right now, so you know, nothing. Don't stress yourself out too much. All right. Cool. That's looking good. Let's check back to see. You know, so we've taken care of that. See how clean that line is up at the top, right? It looks normal, looks natural because we made that clean line. Without it, it would have been really hard to make that look good. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and move down here. So I'm going to create a new layer. We're going to hold Alt or Option and sample with our clone stamp tool. Okay, and we'll just start painting this in. We're going from right to left. If you have any areas that repeat there, do your best to clone stamp again to remove anything that's like pretty obvious. Oh, and by the way, you can see how if I sample and then I go over here to paint, I can see a little preview. Very nice to have. If you want that, go to Window, down here to Clone Source, okay, and then check this Show Overlay. Make sure that's checked, because without it, I can't see what I'm doing. But when that's checked, check that out. I can see what I'm doing. Helps out a lot. There we go. So hold Alt or Option to sample, and we're just going to paint this in. I'm still thinking about earlier when I was catching myself doing that like announcer voice. And then we're going to be doing this. It's like I created Phlearn so I wouldn't have to listen to people talk like that in when they were teaching me Photoshop. And then you just can't help it when you're on a microphone sometimes. You just can't help it. I don't know. It just comes out. just comes out. I'm sorry. Sorry. All right, there we go. That's looking pretty good. Now we're gonna wind up taking care of this other area, and a lot of times you'd be surprised how much you can get away with just by like sampling an area here and then painting it in over there, just like that. You know, and if it is like, you know, looks too much like another area, you can always just grab the brush tool and start filling in some detail. So let's paint it up until there, which looks good. Now, you know, I would say the areas that look a little bit fake are like that, right? That looks a little weird, and like that looks a little weird. Okay, not a big deal. We'll just create a new layer, and I'm going to clone stamp right over them. Check it out. Bonk. And there. Cool. Now, like, you totally wouldn't think that that was just, you know, somewhere right next to it. Now we're going to do one more cool thing. We're going to go to Window and then down to Clone Source again, because this time I still want that Show Overlay checked. Okay, I'm on a new layer here, but this time what we're going to do is I'm going to make my layer a little bit larger so I can see a larger area there. And now I'm going to hit this button right here, which is going to flip my selection horizontally. We'll just give you like a little example here. If I were to sample this rose and then start painting the rose, it actually is going to paint it the other way around. Okay, so that's your flip horizontally. If I hit it again, it's going to do it normally. So flipping horizontally is kind of cool because sometimes you need that because you want it to look a little different. So in this case, we're going to use that. I'm going to have this flipped horizontally, so I can paint this in. Yeah, that's not looking too good. Let's hit undo a couple times. Yeah, let's hit undo a couple more times. I just want to try to get a pretty good ending to my hair. Trying to get a happy ending going on. Oh, he went there. Totally did. All right. Which is not really looking very good, is it? Let's hit undo a couple of times. You know what? I liked that idea a lot. It's not really working out. So instead, let's just change our settings back to normal. We're just going to clone stamp from like here and take care of that. There we go. It was not looking unique enough. It was mostly just looking like I was trying to copy those areas. And this hair is so easy to paint that I'll just take care of, you know, any like floor detail or whatever here. There we go. And then, cool. And then on a new layer, I'm just going to grab my brush tool and let's just paint. I noticed that was looking a little bit funky there. All right, so I'm just going to paint this. You know, I'm going to paint my own ending. It's like choose your own adventure here. All right, and then we'll grab this darker color and paint a shadow here. All right, and if you guys have not done much like just raw painting in Photoshop, this would be a great place for you to start because it's not hard. It's just a couple blobs and you know, just some hair, pretty easy. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good actually. Let's just let's grab this color here and paint a little bit over. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. If you want any more texture, you could create like a new layer on top of there, hit S for the clone stamp tool, and then let's say I wanted that texture on there. I can then change my layer blend mode to like darken or something. Or you know what, that doesn't look that great. Multiply, that doesn't look that great either. Let's try changing my levels on this multiply layer. Command or Control L, I'm going to bring my white point up. Make it a little bit lighter, and then hopefully we'll just get rid of, you know what, that just does not look good either. Let's hit delete there. Try this one more time. Instead of using the clone stamp tool, I'm going to use the healing brush tool, which will allow me to sample this area over here, and then I'll be able to paint some texture in over here. So healing brush tool we often use to eliminate blemishes, but in this case I can actually use it to add a couple blemishes. Alright. Which will in turn add some texture. Alrighty. Alright. There we go. Looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. What do you guys think? Yeah? Pretty good? Alright. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought it would, to be 100% honest, but we want it to look good. There we go. And it does. I'm happy with that. Okay, so there's our whole hair group. See how we were able to do that with our hair? That's really nice. Okay. Now we want to take care of our legs group. Let's go ahead and open that up because I need to take care, remember these couple areas there, we're not forgetting. That's another really great reason why highlighting everything in the beginning is a good idea, because it'll allow you to be like, oh yeah, I need to take care of that stuff. It seems like such a simple, like, no-brainer step, and it is, but it's one of those things that's important. It's like writing a list of things you have to do at the beginning of the day, and then it helps you be productive and move through them. It's like such a no-brainer. Like, write down all the things you need to do and then do them. But it helps. I do it every single day. Similar thing here. Just kind of creates a plan. I really do. I love lists. I would not get much done at all if it wasn't for lists, so I'll tell you that. Step 1. Finish your list. 1:30 p.m. bathroom break. 1:40 p.m. another bathroom break. What? Again? That must be getting old. Oh man. Some of you have stopped watching the tutorial. Okay, we're officially doing great here. All right, that looks pretty good. You know what? It still looks like there's a little bit of a reflection going on there from maybe a stool or something. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, it is from the stool, but you can kind of see how the reflection kind of gives it away too. It looks a little bit messy. Sometimes you want to zoom in nice and close when you're doing this clone stamping. It'll keep you from being messy. There we go. And this is an area where you totally could use the pen tool and better define that edge if you'd like. I think it looks pretty good without, but if you'd like to, yeah, that's great. You know what? Here on my legs photo here, I'm gonna get rid of that too because it's a little distracting. It's just a reflection of the lamp, but just a little bit distracting. So let's go ahead and grab our clone stamp tool. I'm a big fan of getting rid of little distractions like this. I think they just help clean images up and allow you to focus on what's important in the actual image itself. All right, we're doing great. I'm really happy with how this section is turning out. I think that, yeah, I think we're looking in a great place. So let's go ahead and call it for this section. In the next section, we're going to be coming back, and we're going to finish this off in just 3 short sections. I'm really happy about that. I was sure this was going to take more sections because I kind of thought I was going to mess up. So I'm always happy when it turns out I was wrong. All right, when we come back, we're going to be doing a little bit more work on there. Let's go back to our original guide. We're going to be getting rid of this. We're going to be adding some blue here. We're going to be lighting up this light as well, doing some color in this object. Let's review everything we have done. We've gone through and added a legs, a torso separately, an arm separately, and hair separately. So we've done all the things that we said we were going to do, as well as removed that stool there. So a little bit more finishing work on this image, and we're going to be done. So we'll see you in the next section.